Welcome to the series of videos on presentation skills for Business 101 section leaders. This work in this series of videos you'll be seeing on presentation skills is based on the work of Kendall Zoller and Claudette Landry, the choreography of presenting the 7 essential abilities of effective presenters. We hope that you'll enjoy it, and we hope that your skills will improve from watching the information here and practicing, 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 and practicing.
In this last segment of the 7 essential abilities, we look at recovery with grace. And again, so much about what is accomplished in communication is through that nonverbal pattern, and that really emerges also when we happen to step in it. And we just get into trouble with either how we respond to somebody or how somebody charges in us with perhaps some disappointment or dissatisfaction from their end. The memories that we have in a life can be created in a classroom by using location, anchors, and emotion. By changing locations, patterns, and energy, we can shift students when they're not in the most receptive states. This gives us the opportunity to recover with grace.
You're a collection of memories, and you have memories about every event in your life over the past 20 or so years. And they live fresh in your mind today. And for each of you, you probably have a moment, a memory where you know who you were talking to, what you were saying when you got the news, for instance, tragically, about 9/11. On the bright side and things that are positive, you probably remember who you were talking to and what you were saying when Barack Obama was elected. Our most powerful memories often are associated with those locations. So what we're going to do today is we're going to explore ways of anchoring that memory to organize information and eventually support the learning of the student. So what we're going to do now is use this particular strategy as an example of how we would introduce a concept and separate out 3 topics. Today we're going to take a look at giving voice to values, and we're going to focus on 3 ideas. First is the analytical framework. After the analytical framework, second is decision-making. Decision-making is important because we have to figure out the options that are available to us. Now third, and probably the most important, comes the implementation. We have to act. After you introduce that idea, a student may call out, what is it about decision-making? And they'll have a question about it. Where am I going to go to answer that question? Well, I'm going to go here because that's where decision-making was talked about. So you step into it, then provide that information. Then you step back out, open up to the class again for questions, and if another student asks a question, maybe this time about implementation and acting, then where are we going to go? Boom. 3rd location. You step in and you answer the question about implementation.
I think that for the Business 101 section leaders, there's a particular challenge that they face in terms of their presentation skills and their communication skills. And we're not expecting them to know many of the things that many of the students in the class may be asking them to know. And so then they have to figure out in creating what you call the credibility in the classroom, how they're going to be unknowledgeable but yet still credible.
So let's say the student is teaching the class, and they just got finished delivering some content that they know, and they didn't move. And somebody asks a question, and they don't know the answer. So they're stuck in that location of expertise. The suggestion is we do what's called a break and breathe.
Pause, and as you're getting ready to step away, exhale. Drop your eyes, turn them away from the group, drop your gestures by putting your arms to your side, and walk away, perhaps like you were thinking. Then, as you've gone far enough for the next location, pop up into that new location with a brand new set of gestures and a brand new voice pattern, and respond accordingly. Teaching is not about being perfect, but what is necessary for perfection is recovery. Because we tend to make mistakes, we lose our way, we have technical difficulties, The key is to figure out how can you recover in a way that is invisible to the students, lets them continue to learn, and gives you the opportunity to correct what needs to be corrected or to find your way. One way of doing that is to delay. You can delay by doing things like having your students turn to each other and for the next 3 or 4 minutes talk with your group members and create a list of questions that they have so far. Another way of dealing with that might be to say, turn to your neighbor and for the next 52 seconds or so, share what you think is the most important point from the last hour. If you need a little bit more time, you could do something like turn to your neighbor and in the next few moments, create a matchbook definition. Summarize the learning that you have so far and create a statement that you would share with the group in about 4 or 5 minutes. Then, while the class is engaging in one of those activities, you can calmly locate your place, find your notes, or deal with a technical difficulty or whatever delay you have, while not involving the students directly in your anxiety, in your search, and your nervousness. When that happens, recovery becomes invisible. Participants can go through one of 3 stages: shocked, confused, and annoyed. Not only can participants go through it, but whole groups can too. So one recovery technique is to satisfy, satisfy, delay.
When this participant makes a statement and the group is shocked, what the group will do is actually kind of back up a little bit and hold their breath. So a shocked group will go.
So when that group is shocked, the effective presenter must shift them back to an emotionally safe state. One way is to simply breathe and respond directly to the comment that was made. Then go back to what you were originally saying.
Secondly, groups can undergo a response where they're confused. And let's say that student raises their hand again and repeats themselves. Is that on the final? And in this case, the group begins to be confused. Well, a confused group is a group where they're looking at you or they're looking at that student that made the statement. And what they start to do is they start to turn their heads a little bit to look at their neighbors. They're still breathing and all of that sort of stuff. They kind of turn a little bit. They're confused. There's not the emotional safety in the classroom. Suggestion is satisfy that participant again by saying yes or no, whatever the answer is to their question, simply answer it. And a confused group will then come back online and no longer be confused and participate. Now the third level is annoyed, and this one's the most fun. When the student says, is that on the final? An annoyed group would do this. Oh, they roll their eyes, they make noise, they tisk, they turn to each other. We at that point can now take the participant out, in a sense, or in this case, delay, so that they're not going to say anything else. So the suggestion there is that when the group goes to annoyed, as the teacher, as the leader of that session, then pause till the group's finished making noise, and that may only be a second or two, and then look to the person and say, let's talk a little bit later, or let's talk during the break, or let's take that up after class. And palm down, and you're looking at your watch, and you're clearly indicating no more is what that ends up doing.
There are times that you do want to get the attention of people. For instance, sometimes you might have some side talkers or daydreamers or students that aren't listening or they're texting their phone. Whatever they're doing, they're not paying attention. So what we'll do is, in order to, in a sense, recover and get through this, we will cause a disruption in our patterns. We'll have a pattern shift. You want to interrupt a word that has more than 2 or 3 syllables. It might sound something like this. As we begin to illustrate some of the next patterns used, and during that interruption, you silently freeze, you drop your nonverbal patterns, break eye contact, breathe, and step to a new location, and then start over again.